hopefully you don't ask me about the tenor tuba player because he's a guest in the Marlin Symphony. What do I know?
But we digress.
Already, we just arrived.
Yeah, doesn't take long with us. Hi, I'm Robert McBride of All Classical Portland. This is Carlos Kalmar, music director of the Oregon Symphony.
Good evening, everybody.
And you must be the audience. They must be the audience.
Allegedly.
Okay. The audience for the pre-concert conversation, the audience for the actual concert will be larger.
Okay.
Yeah. And the orchestra will be considerably larger by that time, too.
Nobody
Pretty
here.
quiet up here now.
It's amazing. Our program is actually silence.
Actually, it's a very clever, creative program, very clever way to put a Haydn symphony into context. Carlos loves Joseph Haydn's music, loves the symphonies. So what he has here tonight is a program that's all about variations. It starts with the Brahms Variations on a theme by Haydn, then a Haydn symphony in which one movement is a variation form, and then the fantastic variations of a knightly character, Don Quixote by Richard Strauss, on the second half of the concert. Very clever way of wedging some Haydn in there.
Well, you know that actually I thought this is a fantastically clever program. And then while I was reading material about this concert and the pieces, I noticed to my amazement that I think it's exactly this program is being played or was being played by the Boston Symphony and their music director.
Ah.
So now I'm thinking, who stole from whom?
I was wondering that too.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes great ideas are just in the air.
Yeah, but come on, I mean, let's
Quelle
be...
coincidence.
I mean, okay, to pair Brahms Variations with Don Quixote, okay, you can come up with that, yeah. But there are 104 symphonies by Haydn, and I don't know, but probably in 15 of them there is a set of variations.
Yeah, it could be.
So why did they do number 90?
Because it's fun.
Oh yeah, it is a lot of fun.
Yeah. The Brahms Variations on a theme by Haydn is one of the great misnomers in classical music, since the theme wasn't actually by Haydn. But Brahms didn't know that, and he wrote this wonderful set of variations. And he wrote two different versions of the piece at the same time. As he wrote the orchestral version we'll hear tonight, he also was writing the version for two pianos. And I think that would be such a fun thing for a composer to do, these two different versions at the same time. I would love to get inside his head and think what he was thinking and hear what he was hearing as he did that.
Well, as you know, I prefer not to get into the head of especially Johannes Brahms because he scares me. But the interesting thing is that, okay, I think that he started with the variations for piano because he was thinking about a piece, mainly, I wouldn't say for his own amusement, but a piece for him and Clara Schumann. That was actually the reason. And then the strange thing is, all these things that I read that actually he asked his publisher, Fritz Simrock, please send also paper for orchestral scores. Because I first of all, I thought, what kind of a strange question is that? And then I remembered, wait a second, this is before 1900. Way before, so you couldn't just get to the shop on the corner and say, hey, I need a large piece of paper in which I write orchestral music.
You had to get it from your publisher. What if you didn't have a publisher?
Well, you were in trouble.
Well, interesting. I didn't know that.
I don't know whether that is exactly, but I know that there exists a letter in which he asks for, send more paper, bigger paper, so I can write a lot of systems. And then he wrote both pieces side by side. And I have actually never heard the piano version.
I've never heard it live, but I listened to a recording of it today with Martha Argerich and Nelson Frere.
They know what to do.
At the Salzburg Festival, and it's so beautiful. is so beautiful.
Yeah, but ultimately I'm sure that even with two fantastic players, I would miss certain things. The colors of an orchestra, and we're talking about Johannes Brahms, who actually was not an innovator at all. I mean, neither in form, nor in his musical output, nor in orchestration. He just, it's actually fascinating to me that a composer like Johannes Brahms made it into all our minds until this day, and we all say it's rightly so, because he was actually a backwards thinking guy, and other music lovers of the time actually mocked him because of his thinking, because music lovers of his time were, of course, more in the corner of Richard Wagner, who did something that is so innovative. And then there was Johannes Brahms, and he wrote sonatas and was stubborn. It has to be this form. And one of the musical architectures that he liked the most was actually variations. He wrote quite a bit of those. So here is one of them. And probably what attracted him in terms of the chorale by Haydn, that is not by Haydn, was that it's written in uneven meters. That means, if you look at this building has a clear middle, and every side is equal. Well, otherwise probably a building comes crashing down. And in music, sometimes the architecture can be a little bit different, and this is one of those pieces. Now, there are basically two ways to write variations on a theme, because what Strauss writes is actually different. One is you put out a theme, and then you start to fiddle around with the theme in terms of adding notes here and there. And then there is the other form, which is you just take the theme and create with each variation something like a very different character. And the theme becomes kind of it's kind of sometimes far away. And that is what Brahms does. And he writes all these variations, and at the end he writes, it wouldn't be Brahms if he wouldn't recur in the finale to a form, again, you heard me saying he's backwards thinking, of a form that it was used in the Baroque era. The finale is a passacaglia. I didn't count how many times. A passacaglia is where a theme, mostly in the bass, a line is repeated over and over and over and over and over. I think in the symphony number 4, it's 32 times. You don't notice that it is 32 times, and here it's probably a little bit less, shorter. Great piece.
I've always thought that this piece would be magnificent for a ballet. The curtain is down for that stately opening. The curtain rises for the first variation. There's the company. And there are so many different characters. Some are masculine, some are feminine, some are fast, some are more slow. So you could have, pairs and trios of dancers and women here and men there. And then in the end, for that big finale, the entire company on stage. It would be glorious. Have you ever thought about doing any choreography?
Well,
I set you up, didn't I?
You know what you're talking about.
Body Vox. He's choreographing for Body Vox.
No. Okay. The next show of Body Vox, I mean, I'm lobbying for my friends at Body Vox and for Jamie and Ashley, who are the leaders there. Jamie called me and said, hey, Carlos, we have a very weird idea at Body Vox. We are inviting several personalities and artists we know to choreograph a little piece. Would you be interested in doing something? And I thought, you are just crazy, Jamie. And then I said, okay, but only if my wife helps me.
So I think that's a really smart answer.
Delegate. So, yeah, it's happening.
Oh, I can't wait
but
to
I would,
see it.
I don't know what all the other choreographers who are not choreographers what they did, because essentially to choreograph specifically is really hard, and I wouldn't know what to do with that. It's more you bring an idea and you throw the idea at the dancers and at the company, and they take it and work with it, and then you say, little bit of this, little bit of that, stuff like that. And that's how, in our case, a choreography happens. So there will be a choreography by Rafael and myself.
What a wacky, crazy idea. Bodivox. It's called the Pearl Dive Project, and it's opening in a couple of weeks. I don't remember.
It's April 7.
Okay, now you know. And if you've never been in the Bodivox facility in Northwest Portland, you'll love it. It's so great. This wonderful old building that they acquired and completely rebuilt and made it their own. But we digress. But I thought you would want to know about Carlos dipping his toe in the choreographic waters.
Yeah, what I do when I have time.
And then there are Haydn symphonies, such as, number 90 in C major, for example. This is yet another Haydn symphony that I've never heard in concert, but I will finally get to hear it tonight, thanks to you. And Haydn's famous for his wit, and this symphony certainly shows that. Often the endings of his symphonies are funny, or they have you on the edge of your seat or something. This one's maybe the most bizarre of all those endings.
Leave it at that.
Okay, so.
I mean, it's kind of hard to talk.
Well, you don't want to give it away.
No.
Yeah. All right, let me put it in music theory terms.
Okay.
Kind of. The Further Adventures of Supertonic. Leave it at that.
Yeah, because any explanation, I know now since you came to this, and I don't remember what is in the program notes.
Not much.
Great. Great, because all I ask you to do is just... No, it's not about just listen, because then you're going to think, I don't want... No, just do what you think you need to do.
This one's hard even not to talk about. Amazing.
Yeah, but if you say what actually happens...
Okay, well, let's talk about the rest. Okay, so C major symphony. C major in Haydn's time is often fun and festive, and that's the case with this. So you get some timpani and some brass, and you get those variations in the second movement. The way it begins even is interesting, because like a lot of Haydn symphonies, it begins with a slow introduction, but he actually kind of morphs that right into the beginning of the movement. That it's not a stately introduction for the sake of a stately introduction, and then he launches into something else. It just kind of segues.
Actually, the fascinating thing that I always see in the greatest classical music ever written is the simplicity of the themes. It is...
And then how you take that and run with it for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, and you realize that actually the piece could not be any different. Or if it would be any different, it wouldn't be as good as. So what happens is there is a beginning like this, and then he starts, and in the bar 3, you hear a theme very slowly. And then, as in every Haydn, in the late Haydn symphonies, you hear it starts slowly and then gets into the fast part of the first movement. Now, the fast part is actually a repetition of the third bar, just fast. And you are like, you don't realize that immediately. And even how simple all this is, and nobody could actually write anything like this. So essentially, this is a very fun movement, and then comes the second movement. And in the second movement, mainly, a little bit in the third, we decided to use a kind of technique. To some extent, I can say it's a technique, which is a little bit unusual in orchestra playing, which is improvisation. So what happens in the second movement is there is a magnificent theme, and Robert already explained it's a set of variations. Now, these variations are all written out, but there are actually just repetitions with a little more underneath, just stuff. And so I told my leading three woodwind players, to actually make something up.
That's wonderful.
And they can. Because actually what I said was, Martha, our principal, I said, Martha, can you just invent something? And she was like, really? Okay, and then I said, because the way it works, flute is first, oboe is after her, mostly. And I said to Marty, our principal oboe,